This is an emergency update because we've just had the largest crypto liquidation event in history. Not by a little bit, but by a lot of it. This is one of the most historic events that we have seen and that we will ever see. And what is actually particularly interesting about this is this to me feels in many ways like the revenge of the centralized exchanges. If you guys don't know, the centralized exchanges like Binance in specific are where most of what happened yesterday took place. And so we're gonna go through what we know about yesterday. Again, we don't have like an encyclopedic description of what happened yesterday. We don't have a clear evidence-based approach of exactly what happened. But clearly there was a major malfunction with the APIs and the centralized exchanges that led to prices crashing specifically in the altcoins in a historic way where you can only compare it to the COVID collapse. Really, the COVID collapse, maybe some other event in 2021, the sort of mid-cycle correction. But the truth is that this was fully historic. And that means that we are in a position where we need to see that there are two roads here. The first road is that this is the beginning of the most explosive part of the alt season, though that probably won't come quickly, because what I'm about to show you is that several major players, major traders got completely wiped off the board. So things will take a little bit of time here. But when people say, oh my gosh, I wish I could have gone back and bought in the COVID crash, this is potentially the very same moment that we find ourselves in, okay? So that is one side of the glass. That is one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is that this is it. That was the end of the cycle. And the video I made last saying, hey, it's October 6th. Maybe this is the top of the cycle. Well, that very well might have been the top because that was the high. Now, we need to acknowledge that possibility. Realistically, my percentage likelihood that that's the possibility is under 25%. I'm not positioning my portfolio defensively saying, oh, let me get out of stuff. No, that's not what I'm going to do. I do believe that even if that was the top, that we'll see a rally back up and a lower high, at which time that would be the time to take some risk off, but not right now. So let me go through this because what we're seeing right now is that the top 10 biggest losses over the last 24 hours on Hyperliquid, look at some of these P&Ls. You can see 24-hour P&Ls of minus 60 million, minus 59.79 million, minus 35 million, minus 21 million. These are massive wipes. Obviously, people who were all in on leverage, which of course is the antithesis of what this channel stands for. We buy spot and we chill and we wait. Yes, do trade a little bit of leverage with a very small targeted part of the portfolio, just in specific positions. And if you follow people like Crown and follow people especially like Brendan Hong, they always preach not using what's called cross margin. So cross margin allows for one position, one leverage position to essentially wipe out your entire portfolio if it keeps going down. Isolated is the type of leverage that most people should use if you follow good traders. That way the position, if it hits a certain point, it will be liquidated, but your whole margin, your whole portfolio will not be. So cross margin is the thing you want to avoid at all costs, and this was great proof of that. But more to the point, instead of getting into like lectures as to what people should have done, there was no way to predict this. This was insanity, okay? Yesterday in crypto was a 10 sigma event. Here's what ChatGPT equates a 10 sigma event to, okay? That is the equivalent of winning the Powerball lottery 10 times, not in your life, but in a row, okay? 10 times in a row. Flipping 300 heads in a row, okay, on a fair coin. Having every traffic light turn green exactly as you approach every day for the rest of your life. Having every email in your inbox be a legitimate opportunity from a Nigerian prince that actually wants to pay you, okay? These are the examples of a 10 sigma event. Essentially, impossible times a million. That's what happened. So what really happened is there was a complete failure of the infrastructure, especially around centralized exchanges. So if you see sort of like behind the tea leaves here, the decentralized exchanges worked way better than the centralized exchanges. And the damage and the prices seen for those altcoins were way less severe. Because I'm gonna show you right now, some of these altcoins like DYDX, okay? This one went down over 90% in one candle. That is historic, beyond historic. I have never seen that except for the Luna collapse. I have never seen anything like that. Oh, the Luna collapse is a good corollary for this. These are historic sort of moments that you look back on, you analyze, and there's two ways that they work out. Either this completely destroys the bull momentum, which again, I think that's less than a 25% likelihood, or we've just seen the washout that resets the clock and begins the parabolic rise, which is what we've seen several times in the past. Now, Don Alt here, Duck, as we call him, said this is how alt seasons used to start. Nuke huge, full retrace of the nuke, then full send. Bit much to bet on alt season right now, but if we get full retraces, especially on BTC pairs, I'd get excited. He also says this is either the start of the bear market or the start of the parabola towards new highs. It'd be easy to say which in hindsight. Again, hindsight is going to be great. It's going to be easy to look back on this and go, oh, this was so obviously the start of the bear. This was so obviously the start of the parabolic bull. That is not something we can say right now. We're at the bottom. We're at the bottom of the canyon. We can barely see the light. So the question is, are we about to be blessed here? Is this the beginning of the COVID recovery where we're about to see looser monetary conditions? We're about to see this huge leverage wipe into an amazing rally. That has happened a lot in crypto history. But it's also worth noting that usually all-time high breakouts, like we've seen on Bitcoin, usually these all-time high breakouts lead to massive upside. But what we've seen on Bitcoin, this is actually Bitcoin dominance rather, what we've seen on Bitcoin here, if you look at the weekly, is we've seen a ton of these just fake outs. Like look at these fake out wicks. It's just been, look at the amount of fake out wicks here. We need to see this go into a better time, right? We've been seeing these Bitcoin weekly breakouts just lead to complete reversals. Like this is horrible. This is horrible. That's not how Bitcoin breakouts typically go. Usually once Bitcoin breaks out, euphoria, price discovery, explosive upside. So this cycle has just been very different. It's been very, very difficult because these traditional bullish events have just not repeated in the same way. So is this going to be a COVID corollary or is this a Luna corollary where it's the beginning of a bearish period? We will find out. However, I want to be very clear that what we saw here, in my opinion, was a malicious and what I think will come to be known as probably somewhat architected sort of unraveling of the way that altcoins trade on centralized exchanges, which makes me extremely bullish on decentralized exchanges, which I have been for a while, but this stuff did not happen on DEXs. You cannot affect it the same way on DEXs, which is why this event is proof yet again that the future is open finance. The future isn't these closed singular organizations that can control so much of the way crypto works, okay? This is very bullish for DEXs. As altcoin Psycho here says, COVID and FTX reasonably shook the markets, but this was so exaggerated that it's clear one of crypto's main players got fully cleaned out today and triggered that bigger cascade. By far the weirdest crash I've seen in crypto, expecting some big news very soon. I agree. Where's the big news? We need to see what happened here. Obviously, a lot of people are blaming Trump for this. Johnny here posts, man F's 8 billion people at once. And this was because Trump apparently said something about tariffs. As you can see, I'm not in my normal studio. I'm out of town, left town for one day and this happens. Realistically, this is not what happened. Trump did not ruin the market by saying this one thing about retaliatory tariffs on China. He did come out and said he's coming to put tariffs back on China. We know how the tariff stuff resolves. It's a tactic, it's a negotiation, then it resolves with him saying, okay, cool, onwards and upwards to the upside. Arthur Hayes says, word on the street is that the big centralized exchange auto liquidation of collateral tied to cross margin positions is why a lot of alts got smoked. So essentially, there's these types of margin, if you don't trade leverage, that allow for you to tie any position to the entire worth of your account. That's called cross margin. That means that your risk on that position is your entire account. Whereas a lot of people, when they trade, will take a position with just a specific amount of money and cap it there. Say, hey, whatever's lost in this position, if it goes down under a certain amount, well, I can lose that amount, but not my whole account. And so cross margin positions essentially allow for the exchange to liquidate your entire account if you leave them open without a stop loss. Now, a lot of these stop losses were not triggered as well. So you had multiple issues compounding here, right? This is not to blame any individual. Nobody did, in my opinion, anything wrong unless you put your whole portfolio on margin. That's crazy. But I don't think that was very common. That was only like the highest tier of degens that were doing that. Anyway, I could go in and show you tons of charts. They all look insane. But what's clear to me is that this is either the biggest buying opportunity that we will see this cycle, or this is the beginning of a painful unwinding of sort of the cycle narrative in general. So we will see one of two major things happen from this. And I'm betting that we will see some serious upside in the future. That's what I'm betting. But it's important that you realize that I'm not Nostradamus. I didn't see this coming, but this was a $19 billion liquidation. So the COVID crash was $1.2 billion. FTX was $1.6 billion, and today was $19 billion, over 10 times the size of COVID, over 10 times the size of FTX. It's just unfathomably large, which means that something broke in the ecosystem. I mean, Avalanche went from like 30 something dollars down to like $6 or $8. Unthinkable. Billions and billions in market cap wiped off of single majors. Unbelievable, unbelievable, okay? Now, some will claim, oh, we told you just stick with Bitcoin. We told you altcoins were scammy. We know the game. Altcoins are very risky, but this was different. This wasn't just altcoin investing, right? This was a collapse in the way that the behind the scenes stuff, the way that the watch works for altcoin trading in crypto, something broke, okay? And we'll find out exactly how it happened, and that will be revealed over time. So moving on here, the difference between the dumps on Binance and other tier one exchanges like Coinbase is day and night. Literally every alt on Binance got brutalized much worse than anywhere else. So I didn't dig into this, but apparently what happened on Binance was where most of this violence occurred. Now this is going to trigger a lot of questions, and we will find answers because if you weren't here for the CZ era, pre him getting investigated, pre the FTX stuff, CZ is very, very aggressive with controlling the narrative. He's always out there talking, answering questions in the heat of the flame. So I'm expecting for as these questions start to surface about CZ, about Binance, that he is going to be on it and at least playing some kind of mouthpiece for Binance. We will find out here. Because if it's true that Binance sort of lets something slip here and it's their fault, which it's sort of looking like that, this is going to trigger a new movement either away from centralized exchanges or away from Binance in some meaningful way. But this was horrific. This was wrong, whatever happened. That being said, as Becker has said here, the first two of these major liquidations were some of the best days of the last decade to buy crypto. Yesterday will probably be the third. Now he's referring to COVID and FTX. Of course, FTX collapse was the ultimate low of the cycle. That was the ultimate low of the bear market. So if you bought anything in the FTX collapse, you became giga rich. Same with the COVID crash. So let's see. Luna was the beginning of a pain trade. FTX was the end of that pain trade. So to be clear, if you bought FTX or if you bought anything in COVID and during that crash, you ended up being handsomely rewarded. The other thing I want to point out here is when you see these types of liquidations, when you see this level of liquidations, like we're showing here with Hyperliquid, these types of traders will not be able to recover their funds very quickly. Now, you did see a post on Binance saying that they're going to try to give back funds to users who are affected. This is something I've never seen before. I've never seen Binance come out and say, hey, we're going to refund users for a mistake. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember that happening. I don't recall it off the top of my head. Okay, so this is a historic level of collapse to have Binance coming out and saying we're doing returns. All right, we don't do that normally, okay? So this is where we're at, is that this is either the best buying opportunity of all time or the beginning of something way more painful for alts, which I believe will probably resolve then when the new Fed chair steps in, looser monetary conditions come onwards and upwards. But for now, we don't have that information. We just need to operate with what we have. And I believe we should treat this in the same bucket as the FTX collapse and the COVID collapse, both of which didn't recover until other changes happened. If you remember, the FTX bottom lasted a little while, like probably a few months is fair to say. I think we have some time to recover. So you don't need to be a hero here. You don't need to jump and do anything. But what's really interesting is the DEXs just kept on chugging because these events just create a lot of volume. There's a lot of activity, right? And so you're seeing that what the future of this industry looks like is open and decentralized finance, where this would not have happened. I mean, it's essentially a massive advertisement for decentralized finance. Absolutely crazy. As Raul says, all of this is noise if you don't use leverage, or of course, if you don't use a ton of leverage across your whole portfolio. This is definitely something that, as you know on this channel, I only touch leverage in very small amounts. So I did have a couple of small bets that I had on get liquidated. It's part of the game. But the two questions that Raul points out here is, are we going towards a future that is crypto native? And if so, then this is a buying opportunity. Any of these collapses, no matter how bad they are, you always look back and go, damn, why didn't I just buy while everyone was freaking out? So has the liquidity cycle and business cycle topped, or is it still rising to finance the $10 trillion that need to roll in the next 12 months? If both the answers are yes, then this is all noise. If your time horizon is 5+ years, then the second part is noise too. BTFD, DFTU, as Raul says. In the end, to me, I'm not talking down to you. I'm not going to treat you like a kid here. This was really brutal, but I'm all in on crypto. I know that this stuff is coming. The shape, the type, the pace, we need to be very flexible because like I've been saying for the last few months, the concept of the 4-year cycle to me no longer makes a ton of sense. The concept of crypto being part of the larger business and economic cycle makes a ton of sense, makes ultimate sense, right? That instead of changing the reward rate on Bitcoin, that actually Bitcoin's responding to the entire economy as it should be, as a hedge, as a debasement, protection, and that crypto reprices in relation to Bitcoin, in relation to where the risk appetite is in the entire economy. Because we all know, as today is a huge example, great example, that the risk in altcoins is severe. So we cannot pretend like these instruments should be traded the same as the Mag 7. Just because Google is up today doesn't mean my altcoins should be up today. And once we see the risk curve be pushed out, that's when altcoins will start to catch more perpetual bids, more persistent bids rather. This just made me laugh because he said, my wife is calling me a quote bad listener while my net worth just went down 65% in 1 minute. This was just interesting. This was just a time lapse here of the collapse of the chart. Just kind of crazy to watch. This is not the way crypto should work, and it's a sign that something was very, very wrong. But anyway, we can just maybe scoot through it. You can see it. Just wild, wild. Now, many speculating that Wintermute blew up. Wintermute apparently is okay, so it wasn't Wintermute. And then Jesse is saying that the issue here is that centralized exchanges, like one that shall not be named, that start with a B, are charging way too much of a token supply to be listed. Now, we've all heard these stories. And personally, I've never actually experienced this personally because I've never advised a project that I've co-founded or worked with. I've never advised the foundation to proceed with any kind of predatory listing that required such a big chunk of tokens. Now, over time, exchanges get a big chunk of tokens because as the token trades on the exchange, the fees get paid through in that token to the exchange. And we all know that those exchanges tend to sit on those and maybe even use those to trade within those pairs. But this is a problem, right? A lot of people are saying that this is the issue, is that the listing fees allow for the exchanges to have way too much of the supply going forward. Again, let me know in the comment section below what you think is the actual cause here. But in the end, broadly speaking, there are two types of players left in this market: multi-cycle surviving cockroaches and divinely protected individuals. I sort of feel a little bit of both. I feel like I'm a little bit of both here, right? Because in the end, both types are very hard to take money from. If you're a cockroach and you've had this mentality to survive for what is now 9 years for me in crypto, and it's always just about surviving, driving down your cost of living, driving down your lifestyle so that you can afford to be in the game as long as it takes to get there. And then combined with literally praying, betting on the moons. You guys have seen me talk about astrology. I don't care what you guys think about it. I'm here to throw the entire kitchen sink at the success journey. And I do everything from praying for my bags to working for my bags to trying to insulate myself against the risk of my coins going down and that wiping me off the table. All of those things together, and I agree, right? So what I think is left right now in crypto after yesterday is a very ossified group of people, a hardened group of people. And there are a lot of people who got wiped, and I'm sending my thoughts and prayers to you. And I believe that many, if not most of them, will come back stronger and will be richer in the future, because that's how crypto is. The type of people who built up a $60 million portfolio will do it again, right? That being said, this is what's left. And usually the bigger rallies become more obvious and start once the community has reached a hard point. Once you can't drill down and there's nothing left to dig out, it's just rock. That's where you get the diamond hands. That's where you get the unkillables. And I think after yesterday, the only people left are the unkillables, right? So if you bought spot, if you're just chilling in spot, if you have some staked coins, you're just hands off, waiting for alt season, waiting for crypto to do its thing, then this probably won't affect you. And I think a lot of my audience probably won't affect you. I know you guys don't trade leverage. So anyway, that's it for me. Just wanted to make a quick emergency update. This is not the type of video that I wanted to make, certainly not the time I wanted to make it. I was not planning on making content this week, as you can tell. I am out of town. And the reality is that sometimes crypto just deals you the cards that you're dealt. I do feel this tremendous sense of optimism, as always, seeing that, one, the future of the industry is very obvious. It's not these centralized exchanges. It's the real technology that we've built that serves a very real use case. We've seen circuit breakers on the traditional exchanges as well. Traditional exchanges fail all the time. Centralized exchanges fail all the time. The future is DeFi. The future is open. And the idea that just because there was this problem in the altcoins today, that this isn't the future of finance, to me, nothing's going to shake me from that opinion. So I am one of the unkillables. I will be here. And I hope you all will be here with us because I believe that the highest likelihood is that this is a traumatic event on the way to a very important and very life-changingly positive event. So that's where I'm betting my money. Again, it's important to acknowledge the risks all around, sending my thoughts and prayers to everyone who got affected from yesterday. And hopefully most of you took a ding on paper on your coin trackers. You're down, but you're not out because the truth is that this is an endurance game. That's what this is all proven, is that surviving these traumatic events is what is the key to ultimately benefiting from crypto. I hope you all well, sending my best, and I'll see you very soon. Cheers.